Here we go. There we go. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
How have you been? How are you coping with everything? Where are you staying? Where are yeah.
So I'm at my house. So you remember the house you came to back in high school?
Yeah.
So I live there by myself now.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Where's
my
your
dad
dad?
visits. He travels. He's retired, so he spends a lot of time in India. He's there for 9 months. He's supposed to come back May 20th, and we're hoping he can come back.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
We'll see.
But when he's here, he either stays with me or he's visiting my sister or his brother. So he travels.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I guess I should say this is Nivi. Did I even introduce you? This is Nivi Ganeshan. We went to high school together. Now, Nivi, you and I, we ran the Indian Club at
we did.
Centennial. You actually were my introduction into Indian culture. I remember I was at the time. I remember I was having trouble with Christianity, sort of like the values of Christianity, and it just sort of felt judgmental and sort of rigid and sort of in a box. And so I remember I reached out to you to sort of learn about Hinduism and Buddhism and all those different things. Do you still sort of are you still practicing any of those, or how would you
Yeah.
define your belief system today?
So I guess when people ask me, I do say I'm a Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
I do pray every morning. And before I go to sleep because when I was a kid, I used to be scared of the dark, and my mom used to say you should pray at night. So that's what I
Oh.
do.
Aw.
But I also don't know if you know, but I have been diagnosed with OCD. So sometimes my ritual of prayer,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's am I doing it because of my faith or has it become a you
Right.
know compulsion that I
Yeah.
have to do it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. When did you discover that you had OCD?
So I think my sister knew for a long time I had it
Mm.
because she'd always noticed these quirks and these things I would do, and I didn't really address it. I just did those things to feel better, and then I actually started going to a therapist a few years ago, and when I talked to them, they're like, "Yeah, these are signs of having obsessive compulsive disorder."
Yeah.
And
What were some of the signs?
oh gosh,
You don't have to go into it if you don't want to.
there's a lot. I
Yeah.
just weird rituals I do. I have before I go to bed at night. I have like a I check like four doors in my house and like
Oh,
do these
wow.
tapping things. I've always had like even numbers.
Mm.
I send a lot of emails and texts at an even time, and
Oh,
it's
interesting. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's not like if you go to my closet, it's not super organized or anything. It's not any of that anal stuff, but it's more
Right.
of these rituals
Yeah.
that just make me feel better for some reason.
It's funny.
And it's exhausting.
I'm talking with do you remember Morgan Clark Youngblood?
Yeah.
I'm talking with her brother, and he has OCD as well. So that's
Ah.
but it's also not the same. Like, I think when we think of OCD, we think of it as being like clean, neat, everything is like, but that's not necessarily how it manifests itself in everyone.
Yeah, so I used to have certain things like in certain order, but now it's developed into more of a I have a lot of like sensation things. Like if I'm walking and I step on a pebble with my right foot,
Mm-hmm.
I have to even it out or balance it out and do it with my left foot. Or like if
Wow.
I graze something with my hand, I'll do the other side. It's
Wow.
yeah, things like that.
And so how do you treat it? Do you take medication, or is it just therapy, or like
So no, I'm not on medication. I know people can go on medication for it, but that's not something I've wanted to do.
mm-hmm.
But the therapist that I talk to now, I really like her. She has said, one, you just have to accept it, like certain behaviors, as long as it's not hurting anyone or,
Right.
as long as it's not stopping you from just living a normal life,
Yeah.
it's okay to accept certain behaviors.
Yeah.
Also, I heard that this goes back to like psychology when we learned about the amygdala. I guess it freaks out. So sometimes I just tell myself, hey, your amygdala is just freaking out. I don't know if it's true or not,
Yeah.
but
No, but
I
it's
just
not.
have to.
I find that too when it's nice to sort of, you can blame it on something neurologic. Like sometimes when I get really sad, I'll be like, oh, my blood sugar's just low.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'll
yeah. So
blame it on something physical, so then it's like, okay, I know not to take any of this sort of personally, and I know not to freak out about like, why am I so sad. I can be like, oh,
yeah.
my body chemistry is just off today.
Yeah, I think, and I'm working on this workbook. It's a mindfulness workbook for OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you a lot of times, like if you notice yourself doing it, just say, hey, your brain is asking you to do it. You don't necessarily have to do it.
Mm.
But it's
Mm.
hard because I like every time I give up a ritual, like I'll develop a new one, or I come up with conditions. I'll say, oh, it's raining today, so you don't have to do anything. But then it's exhausting coming up with those conditions.
Right,
It's a
right.
lot.
Wow. It sounds like you've really developed a practice of like being aware that you're even creating the ritual.
Yeah, I think for the longest time I just kept denying it,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to go see a therapist about it or just even acknowledge it. Um, and then I decided to go because after my mom passed away after a few years, I was like, maybe I should check out therapy, and then brought up the OCD. And
Wow.
I've noticed it'll get worse when I'm stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I've kind of learned to live with it.
Did you ever carry like any shame around it? Like were you ever like embarrassed about it or
Yeah, there's certain times. So at work, so around my close friends, I don't care because I think they already know.
yeah.
But sometimes at work, there's like things I'll do and I'll catch someone watching me. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Right.
And I just play it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your mom. I know that she has been like one of the central, most important figures in your life. She passed away 8 years ago. Um, I remind me, what was the cause again?
She had lung cancer.
Lung cancer. Okay. How do you keep the memory of her alive? And what sort of values that you learned from her do you hope to emulate yourself?
So I think a lot of my personality comes from her.
Mm-hmm.
Or even, I guess, even the way I dress.
Which
She'd
is,
always wear
I
like,
love I love your style. I was like I was scrolling through your Facebook. I was like, oh my god, Nivi turns these looks. I'm
on my
so into it.
OCDs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think like a lot of her jewelry that she had came to
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
So I really like to. I feel like me expressing my fashion or whatever like comes from her because
Mm.
she was very bold in her choices. And like I saw one of your questions was how have you changed from high school? I think I dress better now. I
Oh
think I've
yeah.
experimented, but I feel like I've
No, I've seen you totally blossom from afar. Like again through social media, but I'm like it's like well, and also I feel like in high school all of us were just dressing in oversized sweaters anyways, you know,
yeah,
because the
yeah.
air conditioning was blasting so hard in Georgia. Like it'd be summer outside but winter inside. So it's like, how do you dress for that?
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I feel like I'm compassionate and I got that from her. She was super helpful to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, but also like sometimes to a fault where she didn't know how to say no to people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like sometimes I do that too.
Oh, me too. How did your parents meet?
So my dad was her teacher in grad school.
Okay. I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, so they met in India in a city called Trivandrum,
Okay.
and I don't know, he I guess he was there for a couple of months and she was doing her masters in German, so that's how they met.
Okay.
And then ended up getting married.
Getting married. And when did they move to Georgia?
So we moved here 8th grade, so 2003.
Uh huh.
I moved here, but I didn't go to any of y'all's middle schools. I went to the international school for a year,
Uh-huh.
and then switched over to Centennial for freshman year.
Okay, and what was
And then,
that like? Was there any sort of like culture shock with that?
so I'd lived in Germany before as a kid, and we'd always have visitors. So I feel like I was exposed to things outside of India at an early age.
Mm.
I think AIS was a good transition because they had people from all over.
That's the international
Um,
school?
yeah, it was smaller than Centennial. I feel like Centennial was culture shock, like seeing the hallway filled with kids. Oh my god,
Yeah, really?
that I'd never been in a trailer for a classroom.
Oh my god, yes, yes,
So
yes.
that was, or even the cafeteria, just how huge it was.
Yeah.
Because in India, I went to a school, there was maybe, what, 40 kids in my grade? That's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it was culture shock, but I guess in a good way because I feel like if I think back on my high school experience, it was really good. Like the 4 years, I enjoyed it because everything was new for me.
Mm-hmm. But what about the people? Like, was it at all like I don't know. Like Americans are one thing, but then like being in Georgia is another thing. I mean, we had a pretty metropolitan, I guess, sort of area, but
Yeah, I mean, so I know we didn't have a lot of Indian kids at school, I
no.
thought, compared to like Chattahoochee or Northview. My cousin went to Chattahoochee and most of his friends were Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it was like yeah, I think I
it
could
used to
name
be
like
that.
3 people.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know, but I think no one really asked me like a lot of questions about India. I feel like you were the first person. I remember 10th grade you came and asked me. Um, but I don't know, maybe it's that American thing of you don't pry too much.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, also in high school, I feel like everybody's just so self-centered and focused on what. That's why I was like, I want to ask Nivi, like, what was she going through in high school? Because I was so self-involved and just like into what I was going through. So I was like, well, what was Nivi going through? I mean, is it weird to be like one of 3 Indian kids in a high school?
I don't know. I guess like it did bring into question like my Indian identity because I felt like I didn't relate to a lot of the Indian kids here that grew up here
Mm,
because I moved at such a weird age. So
yeah,
my memories of India are very different from someone that was born and raised here or moved here at a young age.
totally.
For a lot of Indians here, it's all about Bollywood and going and doing garba every year and that kind of thing. But I lived there until I was 13, so I have like different experiences, not just summer vacation in India.
Right,
You
right.
know?
For you, it's like your
So
entire lifestyle. Like it's everything you eat. It's
yeah.
like, yeah,
So
it's your
I
daily
think
practice.
yeah, and I think I'm happy Centennial didn't have a lot of like a huge Indian population just because I think I feel like I'm a little like maybe I'm a black sheep compared to them. I didn't go on to study engineering or medicine or
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. My parents were really progressive as well, and
Yeah.
um, even when it comes to like dating or meeting someone, it's never been like you need to end up with an Indian guy or
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. When I was asking about your parents and the values that you sort of got from them, because they are very much like liberal arts, very curious, very
Yeah,
I mean, even to like move from India to America and Germany, it's like they are explorers. They are people who like seek out difference or like
they are,
to shake
and
things up for themselves. And I feel like maybe
yeah,
you're the same way.
yeah, and I even my mom like she taught at a Montessori school, but she had friends from all over. Like we did, like I mean, I guess I still have an Indian community here because my uncle's family is here, and he has a lot of Indian friends, and so it's there. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've always had a very diverse set of friends.
Yeah.
Even in high school, I feel like I talked to everyone, and
Yeah.
in the classes I took, and even in college, I feel like, I mean, I'm still like that. I'll talk to the wall if I have to for 30 minutes. Yeah.
so funny. Did you, so, part of, in growing up and sort of with everything that's happened around race and just learning about white privilege myself and my own sort of, and the ways that white culture has sort of appropriated a lot of things from other cultures, did you ever sort of get a sense that that's, because sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh my God, is that what I was doing when I was the president of Indian Club? Like, was I treating this like a costume instead of like taking this seriously? And
well, did you feel like that?
no, I mean, especially in my talks with you, and learning about the religion and the practices and like, I was genuinely on a quest of like figuring myself out because I just sort of felt so lost and like the Christianity didn't really seem to fit. And then in Indian Club, we obviously had a lot of fun with it, and we, we learned about Garba, we learned about Holi, we learned about Diwali, and, but then also like, wearing my Punjabi, which I still have.
Okay.
I love it. I've
the
like
blue one?
The blue one. It's like, I need to get another one because I end up wearing it to all the events and it's like, okay, do you have another outfit? Do you have another look? But I wore, wearing it to school was like, promoting Indian Club, but at the same time it was like, I look back and I'm like, oh, is that going to look bad in a couple of years of just like, I don't know. I sort of go back and forth with it.
Yeah, whenever I think about it, I guess I wasn't thinking. I feel like I've become more aware as I've grown older.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the intent was different. Like, there are times now when I'll see certain things, I'm like, oh my gosh, why are they doing this? Or,
Right. Right.
But I don't think I thought of it as that back then. I just thought, oh, someone's curious about my culture and is asking questions about it, not just making assumptions necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think as I've grown older, like I think I do pick up a little bit more on about certain things. And I mean, I've thrown Bollywood parties before and invited my friends to come and dress up and we'll play Bollywood music and try and have someone teach us how to dance and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just so fun. There's so much to celebrate in the Indian culture. There's so many, and it's so, the clothes are so vibrant. Like everything is and that's like, it's tough because it is an experience, right? Like it is something that is like so fun, but there is meaning in like, I also had a lot of fun like learning about, what was behind some of these celebrations.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the things that annoy me is when you see people like capitalizing on certain things that's always existed maybe somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially with like the new like yoga fad and that kind of thing. Sometimes I'm just like, what is going on? But then I'm also like, there's bigger things to worry about, so let people do whatever they want to do. Right.
Yeah, it's one of those that with cultural appropriation, something that RuPaul says is like, take it. I can always make more. Like, other people maybe aren't as creative or like they don't have anything, so they almost like have to take other things because it's like they don't know how to create things for themselves and it's sort of, I don't know. I sort of, for me personally, whenever I do something that I see other people take or anything in the gay community that like straight people take, it's like, oh, well, I can always make more.
Yeah, I think that's been my attitude is like, okay, if you want to partake and share in it, I mean, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah. But I do get annoyed at certain things. I don't know if any of your followers do goat yoga.
Oh.
Like, what is that?
Right, yeah.
Some of those things. Or like when they're doing like the goat yoga with beer and...
Yeah.
That's not what yoga is all about, but...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the same thing about that. I mean, that just... First of all, that just does not appeal to me. Like, I if I'm gonna go play with goats, I'll go play with goats. But like for me, when I do yoga, it's like I'm having a hard enough time being in the position. Like it requires a lot of focus and presence, and
Yeah.
I feel like being having to worry about these goats and like are they gonna bash me in the head? Like no, thank you.
Yeah. But then I'll always circle around. Like, I'm sure I put tons of things out there or do things that are going to annoy someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
So
that's like the nature of being human. Like
it is.
we're always going
Yeah.
um, to annoy other people in some capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, is there any? Now I know that obviously losing your mom is one of the most difficult things that we can go through as humans. Sorry to switch abruptly
No,
switch gears, but just like
it's okay.
I feel like we passed over it, and I didn't want to like treat it so lightly. Um, when and it happened, I believe, right as you were going into college.
Yeah. So she got diagnosed like freshman year of college.
Uh huh.
Um, so it was weird.
Yeah.
And then she survived for 3 years, but the last couple of months, because it was pretty bad cancer, and she, I guess, outlived what they first said.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew it was coming, which I don't know if it makes it easier or not, honestly.
Right. Right.
Um, but she ended up having the year I was graduating from college, because I finished a semester early to
Mm-hmm.
save some money for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up having a surgery, and that's when everything kind of went downhill, because she ended up having a stroke, and she was in a wheelchair for the last 8 or 9 months, I
Oh.
want to say.
Wow.
So that was hard. And my sister came, took a semester off from her PhD, came and, was kind of a caretaker for her. And then I finished school in December, and for the next 2 months, I stayed at home with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely hard. And I don't think any of us was expecting something like that.
Right. Right.
Just that also the role reversal of, like, you're my mom, you're supposed to be taking care of me, to
Yeah.
I'm having to take care of you, which that was, I think that's what made it the hardest, just
Mm-hmm.
the last few months,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we didn't know if she was, uncomfortable or comfortable, because she couldn't really communicate. And
Right.
she was like me, like, even during this quarantine, like, I just want to get up and go somewhere, and she was always like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know what it was like being confined to a wheelchair. And
Right. 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 Right.
yeah.
How do you deal with the grief? Do you allow yourself to be sad?
So I think initially I used distraction a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I just hung out with my friends all the time, and I don't know, grief is it's such a weird thing. It never goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's always there. I guess you learn to live with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um and like, I used to hate when people would say time will heal things. It's like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
never gets easier.
Right. Right.
But I also don't blame people. I think that's one big thing I've learned. I've learned who to talk to about it and who not to talk to about it, because
Yeah.
I don't always get what I'm wanting from certain people.
Right. Right. Oh,
So
that's
that's been
interesting.
a learning experience. Yeah, like, you don't just go talk. Like, so there are days when I get really sad, or I'll hear a song or just see something, and it'll trigger that grief, and it's very intense. But I've learned to, okay, who can I go talk to when I'm feeling like this, versus who should I probably not talk to,
Right.
because it's not fair to them either.
Totally.
Yeah, I used distraction for a long time. I still do sometimes.
Yeah, we all
And
do.
then I finally decided to go, like, talk to someone about it, like a professional, because I tried grief groups, and they were all crying, then I cried, but they were also had lost, like, people that were older, and I'm like, well, what do you expect? They were 93.
Yeah. Oh
Horrible.
my God, savage.
But yeah, I don't know. It just, there's like certain days, like her birthday, or
Yeah.
her death anniversary especially, is hard, because also with my OCD, like,
Mm.
I'll have these obsessive thoughts. Like, I'll replay, like, the 2 weeks that led up to her death.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
You still experience like joy though, like.
I do. And there was a cool thing on Instagram, like an image I saw. It's like, you have grief and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, like, exist separately, but it's more of like a Venn diagram, I guess.
Yeah.
Or they had it like, it was like red and blue and they combined it and it turned purple. And that's how it always is. Like, you experience joy, but the grief is like still there. And I don't know, I guess my dad and my sister, I don't know if this is healthy or not, but sometimes we use humor to deal with the situation. So sometimes we'll laugh about it too.
Right.
I don't know if it's a defense mechanism, but...
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I've been talking about humor as if it is a defense mechanism. I actually do think that playfulness and humor gets a bad rap for being a defense mechanism when it's actually very healing as well. I
think so, because I've had, like, you know, say you meet someone and they don't know what's on in your life, and they'll ask, like, a lot of people will ask me, like, a lot of Indians ask this because Indians are very curious, and at UPS there's tons of them. So at Coyote it was just me and this other kid, but they'll always ask, so where are your parents, like, what do they do? So my response is always, well, my dad's retired and he's traveling, so I don't really bring up my mom, just because it's weird to just be like, oh yeah, she died.
Right.
But they'll push. They'll be like, well, what about your mom? So I'm thinking if I don't mention her, they're just going to be like, okay, whatever. But they'll ask. And then I'm like, oh yeah, she died a couple of years ago. And then the look on their face is just like, huh? And I'm just like, well,
right.
It's weird. It's strange.
Yeah. Well, I think you do such a beautiful job of keeping her memory alive, and you know, articulating the importance that she had and that she still has.
I always there's certain things that have happened in life. I'm like, man, I wish she were here to like see what I'm doing, or you know, how would she have felt like when my sister got her PhD and things like that.
Right.
But I feel like my dad does a really good job of, you know, being there for us.
Yeah, I love your dad. He's so great.
Cute.
He is so cute, and he's so he's just he's so bubbly. I don't know.
Yeah. I think we all try to, I don't know, I guess continue her legacy or
yeah. Well, Nivi, thank you so much for chatting with me. Speaking of joy, is there anything that you are currently obsessed with, or that you know, that brings you joy? A product, a hair product, a jewelry line, a TV show?
Not something specific. I will say, like, every day I do enjoy, like, making my outfit. Like, you know, you see on my Instagram, I always do OOTD or whatever.
Yes.
I feel like that's been a big thing.
Can you explain OOTD for people who don't know?
OOTD is outfit of the day.
Yes. It took me forever to figure that out, so I just, you know, I want to put it out there, save people some work.
Influencers have outfit of the day, so I just do my own. I've been trying to wear saris more. So my mom in India would wear saris to work all the time, and my sister and I ended up with a lot of her saris. So that's something I try to do, but it's hard just because it takes time to put it on and whatnot.
Totally.
What else am I obsessed with right now? I'm trying to grow some plants. I'm gonna garden today.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be my new project.
Your new project.
She had a green thumb, so I'm gonna try. Hopefully, I won't kill them.
Yeah. Good luck. You're braver than I am. I could never do that. Well, Nivi, thank you so much for spending this quality QuaranTIME with me.
Yeah, I'm glad you reached out.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. Well, you know, that really was, you know, having those experiences with you in high school, those were so sort of formative for me. And when I was thinking of people that I wanted to talk to and reconnect with, you know, you were one of the first people on my mind. So
that made me really happy.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Nivi.
See you later. Bye.
See you. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Quality QuaranTIME. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. See you next time.